It's a solidly good question. Can Tucker Carlson and Twitter take down traditional media? I mean, maybe we need to better define what traditional media is. Maybe we have to define what takedown is. But when Tucker makes that announcement that he's going to go to Twitter, I looked at it as a stopgap. Yeah, he's going to go to Twitter, but I assume there's going to be something else. I don't know the man. And a couple times I met him, he's always been outrageously nice to me. A couple times I've done a show, he's been outrageously nice to me. I would never make the claim that we're friends. It's just not the facts. I watch from the outside, like many of us do. But the move to Twitter and the announcement about going to Twitter, I always assumed was a stopgap. He's going to go to Twitter. He's going to fight with Fox over the breach of contract conversation. Who's going to get paid? Do I have the right to be on here? Can I go over there? Are you guys going to sue me? That whole thing. And then he was going to go on with his life. But what if I'm wrong? What if the entirety of the conversation is Twitter, the whole Twitter, nothing but the Twitter? Like Rumble, the whole Rumble, and nothing but the Rumble for a lot of people. Guys, welcome to the show presented by Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic liberty and free speech. This started to get into my head yesterday. It was, I had done, segments about this on the radio shows at 93.1 FM WIBC, and you hear them across the country on other stations, on weekends, everything else. And I started asking myself after I was done, what if it's not a stopgap? And what if there's this real opportunity, possibility to say to the ABCs, NBC, CBSs, so the network side, to the Fox, to the CNN, to the MSNBC, and yes, to the Newsmaxes and News Nations, the OANs, you're not necessary anymore. Even the idea of a network isn't necessary anymore. I don't need to be in anybody's home, on anybody's television. I just got to be right here on this stupid brick we all carry around every single moment of the day, including into the bathroom. Don't judge me. And I started asking myself, what if that's the case? What if that's the story? What if that's the actual point, the break point? I don't think I'm so off on the idea that the networks can be broken. But that would be to say that somehow all of a sudden, all of this power and all of this money is just going to go by the wayside, right? Fox or CNN, CNN may not, have the ratings, but they still get sponsors and advertisers that Fox didn't get until they dropped Tucker. They don't talk about that one, that the advertisers started coming back when they dropped Tucker, but Tucker was huge, massive ratings. You sacrificed ratings for sponsors. Well, is that something that you would do? Is this actually good for Fox? Is this actually good for Fox and good for Tucker? And is it good in the long run? So I started breaking this down. Could you really see Tucker and Twitter putting an end to even the concept of cable news dominance? Because why do you need cable news? Let me bring in James Chernosky right here. James is a policy analyst of technology and innovation over at Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org. And this question, and you're discussing this as well, whether the move from Tucker to Twitter can signal an end of cable news or what's the network news dominance? And the answer is, yes or no, James. Is this move that big to you?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question, and I think that it remains to be seen. But what it is right now primarily is a representation of a changing of the guard, if you will. Tucker getting fired from Fox in years past would just never be allowed, right? Like, if he was done at Fox, then, the chances of him being able to resurrect his career somewhere else would have been pretty low. So I think that what this represents truly is that impact of getting fired from a television network doesn't have the power that it used to have, because Tucker does have different options at his disposal now. He can take his show to Twitter. he can go and see his show go and proliferate through the rest of the internet in general, which, admittedly, Fox was doing too. So I think that, at the end of the day, that's the biggest takeaway here is that, these traditional media outlets that have had a lot of power historically, not so much anymore, and probably increasingly less so as we continue to have more digitally native people get online.
So part of what makes that work is that those people like you're talking about who want to watch Tucker would actually pony up to watch Tucker. In the end result, it's one thing to say, well, I can just move to Twitter. One of the things that you hear in the radio landscape, somebody loses their radio gig and they're like, oh, I'm just going to start a podcast. No, you start the podcast when you're on the air so you can get people used to the podcast. So if you should get fired because it's freaking radio and everybody gets fired, eventually I will lose my job, James. Then you've already got the thing going and growing. Tucker's already such a giant name that may not be necessary. The minute he starts, he's going to have millions of people who are watching. The question is, does he need to have millions of people who subscribe, who pay the X number of dollars a month? Is that's what's necessary in order for someone like Tucker or anybody to be able to move forward?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And when we're thinking about it, I think that what you see on the internet is that it's actually a hybrid model. You don't necessarily need subscribers. And if you look at other contemporaries that operate in this space, whether it's Ben Shapiro or Megyn Kelly or any of the Blaze or any of those kinds of people, they certainly have subscription models for their websites for people to go and sign up to enjoy their content. But at the same time, too, they do attract advertisers in their own right. So that way there's a balance of not trying to go and force the consumer to go and spend more money via subscription because there's only so many of those kinds of dollars to go around. And the nice thing for Tucker is that regardless, he does have a powerful name and brand, and that if people know that there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on his show, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to be willing to pony up to him directly in the form of advertising dollars for him to go and feature their products in his show.
But that's,
it's very interesting.
Interrupt. Talking to James Chernowski, Senior Tech Policy Analyst at Americans for Prosperity. I think that's the point. Where I am a guy who does engage that advertiser model. My gosh, Americans for Prosperity is a sponsor of my show right here, and I have other sponsors in the radio world and other sponsors outside of that as well. But even the idea that somehow my name is big enough to be able to command a solid couple of dollars every month from people, even I admit I'm halfway there. I am certainly not there like Tucker's there. Is the model have to be an advertiser related model? Because even if someone were to come in and advertise with Tucker, and I'm not saying they shouldn't, I'm saying they most definitely should, and you should always support the sponsors of the people you see online that you like, that content that you're following. You should always be supportive of those sponsors so they know they're rewarded and they keep doing the thing in the sponsorship of the content that you like. But if they advertise with Tucker, they're going to get destroyed in the other place. Isn't the reliance on the people to be supportive of the content as opposed to the talent getting the sponsor to provide the content?
Yeah, I think that it's a little bit of a mix of both, right? Like, again, there's limited amounts of dollars that Americans can go and throw at various subscription services. So that's what makes it very difficult because, deciding whether or not you're going to subscribe to, let's say, Ben Shapiro versus Tucker Carlson, versus, Dave Rubin or any of these other online personalities that are out there. Again, that all adds up. Even if you're talking about $2, $3, $4, $5 a month, all of a sudden you're looking at, a lot of money stacking up there. It's kind of like what we saw with the streaming services situation, which was supposed to cut the cable. And, now with the way that they've kind of siloed everything, you're basically paying the same as much as you would with cable sometimes, if not more. So I think that, it's one of those things that you got to balance it right. The good news is that, regardless of Tucker, getting his advertisers or not for Fox, there are still plenty of companies that are more than happy to go and partner with Tucker, and they'll pay a premium to do it because they know that he'll connect with his audience. And I think in some ways, too, this does offer a unique opportunity for Tucker to kind of rebrand himself in some ways, because we've known Tucker at CNN, we've known Tucker at Fox, but what's Tucker on Twitter going to be? It's a different, a different customer base. The crowd on Fox is a little bit different than the crowd on Twitter. So I'm actually interested in seeing how maybe he pivots and changes up some of his content with that in mind, because it's not just the traditional Fox crowd that you're hitting now, but now a much broader audience in the online community. So lots of opportunity there for Tucker.
Yeah, but I would argue that he's not going to change who he is to get more of the audience. He's going to bring what he is to a larger direct audience and see who responds to it. And that's exactly the way I would do it. You cannot change yourself for the platform. You have to figure out how to utilize the platform to bring the people to you. We're focused on the Tucker Carlson side here. Let's focus for a moment on the Elon Musk side and Tucker making this announcement. Elon Musk has already put into place all of the pieces to allow people to further extend out their content opportunities by offering up these subscriptions. And you can have a subscription model and content that's only available for subscribers. I don't know if there was a private conversation between Elon and Tucker. Certainly there was the interview that Tucker Carlson did with Elon Musk a few months back, and that could have led to it. But the choosing of Twitter over, let's say, a Rumble, where we are right now, is certainly, it's a coup, if you will. It's a feather in the cap for Elon Musk. So if you're Musk, if you're Twitter, what does this say to you? What does it say to those who have remained with Twitter? And where do they take this momentum? What's next?
Yeah, I think Elon is certainly happy that Tucker chose his platform. From my understanding, Elon didn't go and do anything or solicit him or anything like that in order to go and have him do it on Twitter. I think that Tucker just likes what Elon is trying to do on Twitter, and therefore is trying to bring it there, because he also thinks that Twitter is one of the largest platforms in terms of getting eyeballs on content when people are going and posting things there. So it was kind of a little bit of a natural selection, and nothing, by the way, stops Tucker from going and taking this content. It might start on Twitter, but it will go and proliferate to these other platforms, whether that's from his own doing or otherwise. It will pop up elsewhere. So these other platforms have to contend with Tucker doing this now too, all the same. I think that it's very exciting for Elon, because, especially if Tucker is able to do it and be very successful in terms of getting a lot of subscribers to his, Twitter service, if you will, then it goes and it gives Elon like a data point to point to other content creators and be like, hey, you can actually go and make a lot of money through Twitter doing it with us, as opposed to our competitors out there. So it just goes and adds another point of competition in the social media market for influencers to go and leverage these platforms, right? So I think that's the big thing here.
Does it change the way Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, does it change the way they operate? Right? If you were to look at Fox and they were to lose a smaller talent, their Fox isn't going to worry or get concerned. That person's going to go on to do other things and make small dollars, et cetera, and not necessarily have an effect on the network. Tucker, being the largest voice that was there, has an absolute effect on the network. Certainly CNN losing Don Lemon doesn't have an effect on the network, and Chris Cuomo had absolutely no following that was going to work with him on social media. So does it change them and their calculus and how they deal with the talent and saying, okay, you can say a little bit more of this, you can say a little bit more of that? Or does it reinforce the idea that, nope, the brand must be protected at all costs? We're the thing that's important, not the people who are on the platform, on our shows, on our station. And therefore, if you got to get rid of people, well, then that's just the cost of doing business.
Yeah, I think that that's something that's going to have to continue to be monitored at Fox and all these companies. I think that they know that there's a need for a Tucker, which is why he was where he was at Fox and getting paid the kind of obscene money that he was getting paid at Fox. Certainly,
it's not obscene. Obscene.
Oh no, it was just a lot of money.
Man. Don't be that guy.
It was a lot of money. I think it's like $25 million. They still owe him over the life of the contract that's left. So it is quite fascinating to me. No, I think that if you're Fox or if you're CNN or anything like that, I think that it does make you think in the long term about how you might want to approach it. I don't think it's going to have any immediate impact because Tuckers are not necessarily a dime a dozen. They are unique and rare in their own right. So, I mean, if you're Fox, I think that, if you want to try to not hemorrhage viewers when competing with younger audiences through new media, then perhaps you will go and do that looking forward. But I'm not necessarily expecting anything drastic changing in the immediate future here. This is a long-term play.
Yeah.
If you're going to see these companies change. And I think part of what will go and determine if they change, if at all, is also going to be like, how does this Tucker experiment go, right? Does he become wildly successful doing it on Twitter? Does he get millions of dollars, equivalent doing it on Twitter, right? Because then other personality that might be on the air that might not necessarily be at the level of Tucker, but certainly something prominent might, start thinking about those kinds of options.
Yeah, I've done little bits of math in my head, and I've asked myself the question based on his the television audience and based on the popularity, can he get 5 million people at $5 a month? And I believe that the answer is yes. Like I would put money on him being able to do that. For those of us playing the home game, that would be $25 million a month.
Yeah. It's definitely, it would be very impressive if he was able to get 5 million people to go and do that. The nice thing with Twitter, and you kind of seen it and in these videos, is that I know when he did his announcement video, I haven't checked since, but last I checked, there was over 5 million views already on Twitter. So again, regardless of how you might feel about Tucker and his content, he is definitely a person who can go and draw a lot of eyes to him, which is, I think, the big thing.
That is absolutely it. James Chernowski, he is a senior policy analyst for technology and innovation at Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us. And don't forget to subscribe on Rumble, rumble.com/Tony Katz. Get everything that we do, every last little bit of everything. And I don't charge a dime. Although I gotta admit, I think I just gotta do more live streaming. I gotta get a haircut. I gotta do more live streaming. These are the two things that have to happen right there. And my thanks to Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. That's what it's all about, guys. I will catch you next time.